So hello guys, welcome into our new lecture. So in today's lecture we are going to study about what are property decorators and why do we use it. So let me just show you through an example here. So I'm going to create a class here. So let me just create a class, and then I'm going to take the name of my class, and then inside the class I am going to initialize my class using constructor dash dash init, and then I want to pass some parameter there, like I want course dash student, course dash student, like how many number of students are in our course, and course dash name, there what is the name of course, and then let me use self to link it, and then I'm going to pass our parameter here. So course dash student is equal to course dash student, and again I'm going to initialize self dot then course dash name is equal to course name. Now here we had created two parameters. First, this is our private variable, and this is our public variable that we can access it outside of our function as well. So let me just execute it, and I am going to create object of our class. So our class object name is code is equal to, and then we have to pass here a class name. So I am going to pass my class name here, learn, and inside our class we have to pass two parameters, like these are our parameters, and we have to pass here arguments. So let me just pass here, their students in our course are like 30, and then course name is Python, and let me just execute it. And now if I'm going to call my code here, we are getting the class ref. So let me just use our variable name for which we want to get the value. So for this variable it pass the value of Python, but how can we access it, this course dash student, because it is a private, because there are double underscore at the starting of our variable, so this is private. So how can we access it? So basically there is method through which we can access it, like we can use the class name, that by passing the class name, and then for that class we can call our private variable. So let me just call here a class name. So our class name is learn, and then double underscore, then course dash student. So course dash student, let me just check it. So course dash learn code, yeah, here we have to separate it, like this is our object, and for that object we want to go to this class, and in that class we have this variable. So now if we run it, we can see that we are getting our value. But here comes the working of property decorators, that in this case of scenario, because here we know that our class name is this and this is our variable name, but any outsider who does not know about our code, so he would not be able to access it or modify it. So how can we achieve this? By giving permissions to our outside user. So for that purpose we have property decorator. So let me just show you another function in which we are going to initialize the property decorator to access these private variables. So here is our function. So let me just define our function using def keyword, and then our function name could be course dash student dash access, and then I am going to use self to link it with our class, and then what I want to return this course dash student and at our function we have to use property decorator. So at the rate of property now. Now our this function is converted into a property decorator. Like this is now accessible outside our function as well. So let me just call it. I'm going to use self to link it, and then let me just call it outside our function as well. So I'm going to execute it again, and let me run this again. And earlier we were accessing it using class name, so this time we are going to access it using this function. So I'm just going to copy this function name, and then I'm going to pass it here, and let me just execute it again. What is the error? Learn object has no attribute course dash student. So this is not double under, this is single underscore, we have to pass double underscore. Let me just execute it again, and let me just run it again, and yeah, here now you can see that we are getting our value which was earlier private variable, but using the property decorator we are able to access this private variable value as well. So here we had seen just that how can we access it, but what if we want to give permission to the user to set the value, like he or she can modify it. So how can we access it? So let us see this by using another functionality. So here we have to call our function, like here what is on which function we want to apply setting property or updating or modification. So we have to call a function and then dot and then setter. So this setter will help us to set the properties for our this private variable. So let me just, so here I am going to create our function to modify it, like for setting it. So I'm going to take my function name, and I'm taking course course dash student dash set, because we want to set it. We can take any name, just for our better understanding I am going to use this name, and I am going to use self to link it, and then students, because how many number of students are in it we have to pass it. So what if we what we want to do, we are going to perform some if else, like if student, I'm going to pass student this, like student is less than or equal to. So earlier how many number of students we had? We had 30. So I am going to apply this functionality that if students are less than or equal to 30, then what we want to do, we want to like pass it that we want to perform nothing, but else what we want that update these students with the latest number we are going to pass. So what we have to do, we are going to use self and then dot and then double underscore dash dash course dash student is equal to student. Let me student. Now here what is happening, that we are going to pass the number of students here, that this is our student number, and we are passing it here, and it will check that if it is equal to or less than, then it will pass it. But what if it is not less than or equal to 30, then it will update with the latest number which we pass in our student here. So let me just execute it again once, and let me just, so earlier what was our student course? So we were we had 30 students in our class, but now I am going to like update it. So let me just call it our object name code dot, let me just let me just create, run it again, and now code dot, and our this function name is equal to, and this time I'm going to pass 45. So let me just run it, and now if we run it again, we can see that we are getting 45, as it was a private variable, but we are able to access it here, and also we are able to change it as well using setter property. So here we had seen that how can we access it, how can we set it, and Now what if we want to delete our function? So how can we delete it? So for deleting it we have to first access it. So how can we access it? We can use at the rate and then our course dash student dash access our function name and then dot deleter. This deleter is by default coming with our property decorator. So let me just define another function, and this is student sorry, let me just name same course dash student dash delete. And now we have created a function which will delete. This is just name of function, so you can use any name. This is for just our understanding. I'm using self to link it with our class, and then what we want to del will delete the function, and del what it will do, it will delete that variable. So self dot double underscore course dash student. Now what it will do, whenever we will call this function, it will invoke this delete, and this delete will delete the all the values inside our course dash student. So let me just execute it again, and let me just run it, and we can update it again, and here we can access it. And now how can we delete it? So how can we call this function to delete? So here we have to call delete del, and then we have to call object name. So our class object is code, so we have to call it, and then dot, and then the function which we want to use to delete it. So we have created this function to delete it. So I'm just copying the name of a function and then passing it here, and let me just execute it. It executes successfully. And what if now I want to access it? We can see that we are getting error that there is no object learn inside course dash student, that we had earlier deleted it, so now we cannot access it. So that's a basic example of property decorator, that how can we use them in our programming languages, and how can we decorate our functions. So that's it for today. Please try to practice around different other examples, and see you in next lecture. Till then, bye.